Wolves lose in Portland to move to 13-13 after the Blazers beat them and are now 14-12. I feel like most of the Wolves that played tonight played very well, and the team overall was very solid. But two individuals that were players were very bad, and the coaching I thought was horrendous on the Wolves side tonight. The Blazers, of course, have an extremely talented backcourt and are just flush with skill and shooting. And Anthony Simons is a top 3 shooter from 3 in the NBA right now. And the Wolves were playing pretty good initial perimeter defense in that first half, and were staying in front of people fairly well until they started to bring Gobert into the pick and rolls, and he was playing into a deep drop, which was giving mostly Simons wide open threes. Damian Lillard got the Jaden McDaniels treatment most of the night, so he was not shooting well from the floor in that first half. I think he ended 3 for 10 in the first. He was getting to the line still and making good passes, but he couldn't shoot the ball super well with McDaniels on him and was a little more disrupted. Simons, however, they just throw him in a pick and roll with Gobert. Gobert is so far back that Simons is just lighting us up over and over and over. I wrote down in my notes, Chauncey Billups needs to remind Anthony Simons to write a thank you note for Rudy Gobert for the defense that he played tonight. He's not a bad defender, but he is a situational defender that we went all out to get. And he and we are extremely vulnerable to lethal shooters, and the Blazers got that. And most of the elite offenses, actually, scratch that, all of the elite offenses in the NBA have that. All of the elite teams in the NBA have that. So yeah, Gobert is going to get abused by them, and we're going to struggle against the actually good teams. And that really was the story tonight. Gobert was hard to watch through most of this game. His numbers don't look atrocious. Light rebounding night from him, as the Wolves will end up getting out-rebounded by 15 and also lose the second chance points 22-4, which is just brutal. And the thing about that first half, just as much as they were abusing Gobert in pick and roll, we were doing the exact same thing to Nurk and Eubanks. Like, D'Lo was getting a ton of space off of pick and roll with Gobert a lot of that time, and just getting tremendous shots over and over. The ball was moving extremely well in the first half. The scoring distribution was very even in the first half, and we played great basketball. It's just we gave up a lot of really easy looks with our pick and roll coverage that was just torched by one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA of Anthony Simons. And so even with the rest of their team struggling from the floor in the first half, he was able to keep them alive. And then when we toss good defender Austin Rivers onto the court to try to guard him, he just continues to feast. That's the next thank you note that he is writing over to Austin Rivers. Because even though he is propped up as a good perimeter defender, he is simply not staying in front of people and stopping people. That's just not happening. He's good off ball, and he tries, but he does not have the quickness and the athleticism to stay in front of these elite players. And us pretending like he is still a good defender while he's also shooting 19% from 3 is absurd. He does not deserve 21 minutes, even on a night where Jordan McLaughlin, Taurean Prince are both out. He gets 5 more minutes than Jalen Noel, and Naz Reid, who has 15 points tonight and was lighting it up, is sat on the bench, barely can get into the game, in another game where Gobert is struggling and played terrible for the most part. And this game was back and forth just about all the way through. The Wolves will end up leading by 1 at halftime, which I feel pretty good about because we didn't do anything outstanding. And the absolute best thing we did, we only had 4 turnovers in the first half. I have to talk about that every single game, how big of an issue it is for us. And it would be a little bit more in the second half. Third quarter, the Wolves are playing very well, actually, which is a change of pace for them. Anthony Edwards seemed to capitalize on every opening that was available to him there, had a ton of great finishes. D'Angelo Russell is kind of staying in his zone, the D-low zone, and he was just continuing to make shot after shot. His jumper is kind of getting back to what is really clean and great after such a long dry spell, it feels like, with him as a Timberwolf. Unfortunately, he also had 5 turnovers tonight, and that would be something that would bite us towards the end of the game. Halfway through that third quarter, there was a significant turning point, though. The Wolves are 10-0 run, and then the game is stopped because Anthony Edwards shot free throws that Naz Reid was supposed to. So they're stopping the game for probably 5 minutes while we have all of this momentum, just kind of kills the pace of the game. And that's when things kind of switch. Blazers get it within 6, Ant gets a really tough and one that was huge. But then things just kind of cascaded towards the end of that third quarter. And the Blazers actually end up leading it by 2 at the end of the quarter when the Wolves were up by as much as 10. Start of the fourth quarter is also very concerning. Gobert would have had a wide open dunk on a pass, and it just goes through his hands, sails out of bounds. And then the Blazers started running action with Gobert guarding the pick and roll and Austin Rivers as the primary defender on Anthony Simons. And I was just like, okay, this is my nightmare. This is what it is. We've got the two good defenders that have been getting slaughtered all night by Simons, who is just making every jumper and finishing every layup over Gobert, by the way, too. And I said last game that Gobert was like a presence around the rim for one half and looked really good. Yeah, that was completely gone. No one was scared of him tonight. Eubanks gets a big-time poster over him in the fourth, too, that really kind of ignited the crowd and just made that a really tough thing to overcome towards the end of the game. But Gobert was actually getting some nice feeds from Jaden McDaniels, especially made about 3 or 4 really good passes to him on the interior. I talk about how a lot of interior passing from the Wolves is just turnovers when it goes to Gobert. Jaden pulled off a lot of really good ones. That's part of his game that isn't really always there, the passing for Jaden. Then a big stretch, the Wolves I think are down by 3 points maybe. There's 3 minutes, 23 seconds left. They force a turnover on Anthony Simons, and he's laying down on the block. The Wolves have a 5-on-4, and Simons isn't even off the ground. And Finch calls a timeout, as like, we have numbers. I'm watching the Blazers broadcast, and they're just like laughing at him. Of course, it's like the 3-minute use it or lose it timeout, but just a bad decision when we have the advantage there to call that. And then the look that we got out of that timeout was terrible. The possession was really bad. Blazers get the ball. We actually do play solid defense, but Simons gets an O board on his own shot, kicks it out to Lillard, hits a dagger 3. We come down the court. Anthony Edwards does the thing that I said last video he needs to stop doing, and passing the ball in the interior, especially to Gobert, which is a turnover on the lob. They go down. It's still Dame time. He hits a mid-range jump shot. Gobert, illegal screen, followed by obvious lost challenge by Chris Finch, and that really sealed the game. So much of that game, the Wolves played really well, and most of their roster was great, but the decision-making was not there from Chris Finch. And the label of good defender is like the most valuable thing that you could get in the NBA. Like, it buys you a lot of time and a lot of forgiveness for just looking terrible out there, because Austin Rivers is not that right now, and Gobert is only that in very specific situations right now. So that's a tough loss. Portland's a good team, though. I believe we're playing them our next game as well. But again, this is another game where the basketball we're playing looks a lot better than it had to start the season.